The mission of the Y is actually one that has been part of my life since I was a little girl. So growing up as a little Black girl in the Northeast has been all about making sure that I could be seen and unseen at the same time. So I grew up in an integrated community just after the major push for integration. So if you were a child of the 70s and 80s, your experience of race and racism was something that was different. Coming out of this wonderful time, it was just like joy, push forward, do your best. And so the mission of the Y to eliminate racism and encourage women or empower women is one that I say just drives everything that I do because it's been a part of my life for 50 years. So that's a very interesting question to think about, a woman who encouraged and inspired, because there are actually more than one. I often refer to a circle of women, some that were close and some that were just really far. And so I want to share too, because if you had asked me again this question when I was 10, I would have said Lena Horne. And the reason is because Lena Horne stood out as someone who was more than an entertainer, more than a performer, who stayed in her community. And the first time I saw her was in The Wiz as the good witch singing If You Believe. And I was like, what? You can do that? You can actually believe in yourself? Man. And so from that, I look at all of the women who knew that I needed to see Lena Horne in that movie. So there was the Girl Scout leader, there were the church folks who were there, there was my grandmother. And so they just kept me and grounded me, inspire me to this day. And my mother's hands and my sister's hands and my friends sort of continue to give me that same kind of space that I need to stay survived or grounded. I would say you're more than your journey. So advice is one of those things that you need because it helps you to understand that you're not alone in the process of growing. Your evolution is your evolution, but so many people, like you and not unlike you, have evolved. So, advice, recognize that number one, you have a journey. Number two, that you're more than that journey. And so I think if you can keep those things in mind, it will help you be a better you. So my footsteps, I've taken a path that started one way. I started out being a chemist. So after college, I went to become a doctor in chemistry, a PhD in chemistry. That was my first program. But I was in Atlanta and I was made to teach. In those moments, I was upset because I was like, why are you making me teach? But again, this circle knew that I needed that experience. Well, I taught at Spelman. So if you get to teach at one of the premier historically Black colleges filled with Black feminists and Black scholars feeding Black women, something about your experience changes. And so I would say, don't be afraid to pursue big things. Don't be afraid to teach big things. And certainly recognize that everything that you do contributes to who you will ultimately become. Schools are being disrupted by the pandemic in a profound way. And so I've recognized with great delight that the vision that I had, that school never had to be in one place at one time, was possible. And so what COVID-19 has done is it's allowed me to reproduce myself in a way that I would not have been able to do. So I'm not only teaching the students that I serve in my direct community, but I get to reach into Maryland and into Nigeria and into Minnesota as the same joy. So I'm thinking that the pandemic is really letting teachers do amazing things, and I'm grateful that I get a chance to do that. The mission of the Y, to eliminate racism and empower women, is just so personal for me. And so right now I have committed to doing as much racial literacy education that I can. Creating programs that would allow anyone who really wants to take on the courageous task of learning more, give them that opportunity and make space for them to do that without judgment, without fear and shame. So that's one thing. Empowering women is also, again, so personal to me. But now I have expanded my definition of woman, recognizing that I need to pursue women that are not the traditional woman, and recognize and work hard to magnify, if only for myself, what it means to be a woman who may not have been born in that identity, that gender. And so I am taking on that for myself, to continue to educate myself about the expanded definition of woman and the expanded geography of women, and committing to that wholeheartedly.